The closet door was open again. That's how I knew. Not the texts, not the perfume that lingered on her coat. She hated perfume. Not even the string of emergency errands at 9:30 p.m. It was the damn closet door. You have to understand, Rachel always closed it. Always. Even when she was dead tired, even when we were arguing, even during the power outage last winter, when we could barely see our hands, she would get up and close that door before bed. Said it stared at her. Said it made her feel watched. So when I came home one Thursday night and saw it wide open, I didn't panic. I froze. Not fear, not sadness. Just a kind of sharp metallic realization. Something was off, not broken, rearranged. There was a sock on the floor. Not mine. Black, long, dress style. I wear ankle socks. Always have. Rachel wears fuzzy ones, the kind with cartoon eyes or tiny solar systems. This was not a Holloway sock. So I did something I never thought I'd do in 10 years of marriage. I opened the closet, moved the coats, and checked the floorboards. There's a loose one. Has been for years. I used to stash spare cash in there when I was freelancing. It creaks differently when stepped on, like it knows it's hiding something. That night it was slightly crooked, as if someone else had opened it but didn't know how to close it properly. I didn't look inside, not then. Instead, I closed the closet door gently, turned out the hallway light, and stood in the kitchen for 20 minutes staring at the blinking light on the oven. And then I waited for her to come home. She showed up 43 minutes later. No groceries. No receipts. Smelled like peppermint and a lie. "Hey babe," she said, like she hadn't just broken gravity. I smiled. Asked her how her night was. She said Target was packed. Target closes at 10. We brushed our teeth together, like two synchronized liars in a toothpaste ad. She kissed my cheek. I flinched. She didn't notice. That was 19 days ago. I haven't asked a single question since. Not one. But I've been watching. There's a rhythm to deceit, and once you hear the beat, you can't unhear it. A late text, a smirk at nothing, a name she says like it's unfamiliar, but her mouth has clearly practiced it. His name is Wes. I don't know who he is yet, but I will. I'm not proud of what I've done. The keylogger, the fake survey link, the AirTag she still doesn't know is in her second purse. But I had to be sure, because if the closet door could be open, then anything could be real. And now I'm packing. Quietly, carefully, because she thinks she still has time. But the truth is, I already left 3 days ago. This, what she sees, is just the version of me I left behind. The shell that says, "Good morning," and still mows the lawn. The real me is 3 cities away, watching her unravel through a Wi-Fi camera she hasn't noticed. Not yet. I opened the floorboard the night after she left for book club. You should have seen how careful I was with it. Like I was diffusing a bomb I didn't fully understand. My hands were cold, but my chest was burning. There's something about betrayal that sets your nervous system on fire while freezing your blood solid. Inside was not cash, not old receipts, not even my childhood baseball cards I thought I'd misplaced years ago. It was a letter, a single yellowed envelope, labeled only with 3 letters in her handwriting. J.H.W., my initials. I stared at it for almost 5 minutes before touching it. A part of me hoped it was something innocent, some forgotten love note, a buried time capsule of affection from a younger version of her. But my gut already knew better. I opened it. Inside were printed directions to a storage unit just outside Elmsbrook, an industrial town 45 minutes away, with 1 gas station and more crows than people. There was also a receipt for a hair salon, except it wasn't hers. The name was Wesley Bramer. Not Rachel Holloway, not even close. And then there was the last page, handwritten, faint smudges where words had clearly been erased and rewritten multiple times. Only 1 line remained. If he finds this, it's already too late. I didn't sleep that night, not even a second. I just lay in bed beside her, watching her chest rise and fall like nothing was wrong, wondering if she could feel my eyes burning through the back of her skull. I wanted to shake her awake. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask who the hell Wesley Bramer was and why she'd hidden a letter meant for me under the floor. But instead, I whispered, "Good night," and I let her dream. Let her dream of Montreal. Let her dream of starting over. The next day, while she was at work, I drove to Elmsbrook. It was raining, not a cinematic storm, just that kind of relentless drizzle that makes the sky feel like a ceiling pressing down on you. The storage facility was bleak. Chain link fences. No music. Just buzzing lights and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Unit 204. I used the spare key from the envelope. The lock clicked open too easily, like it had been waiting for me. And inside, a folding chair, a metal cabinet, and a barber's jacket. Neatly hung, still smelled like shaving cream and stale aftershave. There were photos too, dozens of them. Some of Rachel, some of me. Some of places we'd been, Cedar Lake, the bus station in Ridgeview, even one of me mowing the lawn 2 weeks ago, taken from behind the fence. Someone had been watching us. For months. But here's the worst part. Some of the photos were older. From before I met Rachel, me outside my old band's gig in 2013, me working in that dive bar on Mulberry Street, and Wes, he was in them too, but always in the background, always blurred, always just barely visible. I stood there for what felt like an hour. The hum of the light above me was the only sound in the world. My thoughts were screaming, but I couldn't hear a damn word. What was this? A stalker? An old flame? A delusion? Number? It was something else. Rachel didn't just fall in love with another man. She didn't just cheat. She's been part of something far more twisted. And now I'm tangled in it. I took nothing, locked the unit, drove home without turning the radio on. When I walked through the front door, Rachel was at the kitchen table, laptop open, pretending to work. She smiled. "Hey babe, you okay? You look pale." I kissed her on the forehead. She'll never see it coming. 3 nights after the storage unit, the phone rang at 2:17 a.m. Not my cell phone, the landline. The one in the hallway we never use. The one Rachel insisted on keeping because emergencies don't wait for battery life. The number showed up as unknown, but the screen blinked in red, not white. I didn't even know it could do that. Rachel stirred beside me when it rang but didn't wake up. I slipped out of bed slowly, careful not to creak the floorboard, and walked barefoot to the hall. I picked up the receiver, fully expecting a wrong number, maybe some drunk dialing a pizza place. But there was only silence, then static, then my own voice. "I told you not to open it." The voice was mine. Not like someone imitating me. It was me, my cadence, my specific lazy R's. A line I didn't remember ever saying, but I recognized the fatigue behind it. And just as I whispered, "What the hell?" into the receiver, the voice interrupted me again, clearer this time. "She already knows you found it." Click. Deadline. I stood there holding the phone like it might burn me. The light from the street outside cast a broken shadow across the hardwood, and I swear, for just a second, I saw something move across it that didn't match my own reflection. I unplugged the phone. I didn't sleep. Not even beside her. The next morning, she made pancakes. She never makes pancakes. She doesn't even like pancakes. But there she was, flipping them in the skillet with that small-town diner smile she saves for real estate agents and funerals. "I thought we could have a slow morning," she said, "like we used to." I stared at her for too long, long enough that she noticed. She tilted her head like a cat hearing a new sound. "Did something happen?" I almost said it. I almost blurted out, "I went to the unit. I saw the pictures. I heard my own voice from a dead number. Who the hell is Wes, and why has he been following me for years before I ever met you?" Instead, I said, "Did you ever think about changing the locks?" She blinked. "Why?" I smiled. "Just feels like something's trying to get in." Later that day, I called in sick to work and drove to the barbershop listed on the receipt from the floorboard envelope. Wes Cuts and Shaves, it was called. Simple signage, slightly cracked glass. Tucked between a pawn shop and a vape store, like it had been forgotten by time. Inside, it was empty. A bell rang when I stepped through the door, but no one came out. One old barber chair stood in the middle of the floor, with a huge mirror behind it. On the mirror were hundreds of names written in dry erase marker. Some first names, some full names, some initials. I looked for mine. I looked for hers. Nothing. Then I saw it. Rachel Holloway, canceled. In black ink. Bold, not like the others. I took a picture. My hands were shaking again. That's when I heard someone behind me say, "You shouldn't be here." I turned around. It wasn't Wes. It was a girl, mid-20s, short hair, holding a broom. She wore the shop's uniform. Her name tag said C. I didn't speak. She looked terrified, and yet not surprised, like she'd been expecting me eventually. She pointed at the mirror. "She didn't finish the contract. You weren't supposed to find out, but now it started, And once it starts, you don't stop it. You survive it. What contract? I asked. C opened her mouth to answer, but then stopped. Her eyes locked onto something just over my shoulder. I turned to look, but the mirror had gone blank, wiped clean, all names gone, even Rachel's. When I turned back to C, she was already gone. The broom was on the floor. The back door stood slightly open. I stood there alone, surrounded by the sterile smell of hair tonic and cold metal, suddenly aware that everything I thought I understood about my wife, my life, was beginning to disintegrate. That night, Rachel asked if I wanted to watch a movie. She curled up next to me on the couch and rested her head on my shoulder, like she hadn't erased herself from a barber mirror in a cursed shop, like she hadn't made pancakes for a man she'd helped vanish from his own story. I nodded and said sure. She picked the machinist. Of course she did. Something shifted after that visit to Wes's cuts and shaves. I don't mean just in the air or between me and Rachel. I mean in the actual rhythm of things. Like the universe hiccuped, and everything's been slightly out of step ever since. The mornings started earlier. The shadows in our house started landing in places they never used to. The clocks ticked louder, and once, I swear to God, the second hand on my watch skipped backwards, paused, and kept moving like nothing happened. But I didn't say anything. I kept up the act. I laughed when she laughed. I texted my coworkers like I was fine. I even played her favorite Bon Iver album in the kitchen, just so she wouldn't notice the way my hands shook when I stirred coffee. The truth is, I was unraveling, silently, deliberately. After that day at the barber shop, I became obsessed with the names on the mirror, more specifically, the ones that weren't there. Because if Rachel's name was on that mirror, why wasn't mine? Why wasn't Wesley Bramer written anywhere? Who was he? A phantom? A fixer? A threat? Or worse? Was he someone I used to be? The thought had crawled into my head like a parasite. What if Wes wasn't Rachel's lover, but her client? That's when I started digging, not just through receipts or social media or her emails. I went deeper. I started looking through town records, archived newspapers, real estate logs, even Reddit, searching for the name Wesley Bramer, for Wes, for anything connected to that barbershop. It's like the man had been surgically removed from existence. No driver's license, no bills, no Yelp reviews. The website for the barbershop was a single image that looked like it had been scanned from a newspaper in 1984. And the copyright date at the bottom, 1991. It hadn't been updated in over 30 years. And then I found something in a forum that made my blood go cold. A user in a closed thread titled, "Names Disappearing from Glass," had posted, "If you see your partner's name in the mirror, but not yours, you're already an echo. They're rewriting you." That thread was posted in 2014, and the user who posted it deleted. So now I'm an echo? I looked in the mirror that night, not just a passing glance, but a real look. I studied my own face for 30 minutes, standing in the bathroom with the fan humming above me like a death rattle, and I started to notice things. My cheekbones didn't sit where I remembered. The mole near my jaw had vanished. My eyes, once a muted green, were starting to look gray. I pulled out old photos of myself, side by side. It wasn't the lighting. It wasn't in my head. I was changing. And Rachel. Rachel was watching me closer than ever. Last Thursday, she made me lunch for the first time in months. Turkey sandwich, sliced diagonally with those off-brand jalapeno chips she knows I like. I opened the sandwich carefully. Nothing inside. No note, no pill, no fingerprint. But something about it still felt loaded. So I took one bite and flushed the rest when she wasn't looking. Later that evening, she asked how lunch was. I told her it was good. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. She nodded too slowly, like she was listening for something behind my voice. Then she said, "You look better lately." "Better how?" She shrugged. "Just clearer." I went back to the barbershop the next day, but it was gone. Not closed. Gone. There was no building between the pawn shop and the vape store anymore. The bricks didn't even line up right, like something had been erased, but the world didn't quite know how to stitch itself back together. No sign, no window, just a 6-foot wide strip of off-color wall, and silence where a door used to be. I turned around and saw my reflection in the vape shop window, and for a split second, I swear, I wasn't alone in it. Someone was standing next to me, a figure, tall, blurred, wearing what looked like a barber's smock. But when I turned, nothing was there, and my heart didn't speed up. It slowed down, like it recognized something. When I got home, Rachel was in the garage, tossing old boxes into the trunk of her car. She looked surprised to see me back so soon. "You left work early?" "I forgot something," I said. She shut the trunk slowly. "What did you forget?" "My name." She froze, just for a second, and then she smiled. "I'm glad you're finally starting to understand." She got in the car, drove off without another word, and I stood in the driveway, realizing I hadn't blinked in over a minute. I knew something was wrong with my memory the moment I saw the photograph that shouldn't exist. It was buried in the bottom of a shoebox, inside the attic crawlspace I never go into. The dust was thick, the kind that clings to your lungs when you breathe. But the box, it was clean, like someone had placed it there yesterday. The photo was on top. No envelope, no context, just a glossy curling print of me and Rachel, sitting at a picnic table in front of a cabin I don't remember visiting. I was wearing a red flannel I've never owned. She had a streak of silver in her hair. She's never dyed. The timestamp in the bottom corner said August 2016, a year we spent fighting through IVF, sleeping in separate rooms, barely speaking. But in the photo, we looked in love, truly, deeply, sickeningly in love, which means the photo is a lie, right? But the longer I looked at it, the more confused I became. I recognized the shape of the mountains behind us, the chipped mug in my hand, the scratch on my left wrist from chopping wood. Except I've never chopped wood in my life. And when I showed it to Rachel, expecting confusion or denial, she didn't even flinch. She stared at it for a few seconds, smiled warmly like she was flipping through a family album, and said, "Oh, you found it. That was one of my favorites." I asked her where it was taken. She said, "You don't remember the cabin?" "No," I said. "We weren't even speaking in 2016. She tilted her head. "Sure we were. That was the year you proposed." My stomach dropped. I proposed in 2013, at the Botanical Gardens in Richmond, in front of the koi pond. She cried. I cried. It rained. We laughed about it for years. I remember it like it was burned into me. But she didn't. She swore we got engaged in 2016 at that cabin in the photo. She even started describing the trip, how the heater broke, how we played Scrabble by candlelight, how I made her hot cider in a saucepan and spilled it on the porch. It was too specific to be a bluff. But I know that trip didn't happen. I know it. So, what the hell is happening to me? Later that night, I tried to pull up old texts, emails, anything from that year to prove myself right. But huge chunks were missing. Months, entire threads gone. My iCloud backup was corrupted. My external drive, password changed. Every document I opened had pieces missing, like someone had carefully snipped out my personal history with surgical precision. Worse than that, the things I did remember were starting to fray at the edges. Like walking into a familiar room that's been ever so slightly rearranged. The floor creaks in the wrong spot. The light switch is half an inch to the left. My own memories feel warped. One night, I walked into the living room, and Rachel was watching TV, laugh track sitcom, some old show. But the volume was off. When I looked at the screen, the characters weren't moving like actors. Their mouths were glitching, looping the same expression over and over, stuck mid-smile like someone had hit pause and pause again too fast. I blinked, and the scene changed. Rachel looked over and asked if I wanted wine. I said no, but my voice sounded distant to my own ears, like it had to travel through water to get out of my throat. It got worse the next morning. I woke up in the guest bedroom. The sheets were cold. The door was locked from the outside. When I banged on it, Rachel opened it like it was no big deal. She had coffee, smiled sweetly, said, "Rough night?" "Why was I locked in?" "You were sleepwalking again," she said. "I had to keep you safe." "I don't sleepwalk." She didn't argue, just said, "You didn't used to." That phrase, "you didn't used to." Like I was some evolving creature becoming unfamiliar even to myself. I showered with the door open after that. I started leaving notes for myself, taping them under the sink, inside jacket sleeves, behind picture frames. Little reminders. Your dad died in 2019. You hate cilantro. You proposed in 2013. But the next day, one of the notes was gone. Then another. Then another. The only one left was the one taped behind my old guitar case. You are being rewritten. I didn't write that one. I haven't told anyone yet. Not my brother, not my coworkers. They wouldn't believe me, and if Rachel's right, if I'm already changing, maybe I wouldn't believe me either. But tonight I stood in the mirror for nearly an hour and practiced saying my own name, just to make sure I still recognized it. Julian Holloway. Julian Holloway. Julian Holloway. It's starting to feel like a borrowed name. And Rachel, she started calling me Wes. I can't tell if I'm remembering or forgetting anymore. What I do know is that Rachel has stopped pretending. She no longer plays the part of the confused wife or the patient observer. She's no longer cautious with her words or hesitant with her corrections. She's leaning in now, committed to this performance, this rewritten life, this delusion she's trying to anchor me inside. She calls me Wes openly now, not joking, not sarcastically, just matter of fact. Wes, your keys are on the counter. Wes, your mother called. Wes, you been sleepwalking again? The last one chilled me, because my mother died 3 years ago. But Rachel says she's alive and well, lives in Indiana now, and apparently we had dinner with her last November. She even showed me a photo of the three of us sitting at some old Italian restaurant. Me, Rachel, and a woman who looked almost like my mother, but not quite. Like a cousin in a mask. Her smile was wrong, too straight, too rehearsed. I stared at the photo for a long time, and for a few horrifying seconds, a thought crept into my mind like a spider slipping beneath a door. What if that really was her? What if I'm the one who doesn't belong in the picture? The people at work started calling me Wes, too. At first I thought it was some twisted joke. Maybe Rachel was messing with them. Maybe she was planting seeds. But when I asked them about it, calmly, trying not to sound as insane as I felt, they all looked confused. My manager actually pulled me aside, concerned. "You've been acting strange lately, Wes," he said. "My name's Julian." His expression didn't change. "It hasn't been Julian for years." I told him to pull up my employee file. He opened the system on his tablet and turned it toward me. Name, Wesley H. Bramer. Start date, January 2017. Position, Senior Copy Editor. Emergency contact, Rachel Bramer. I nearly passed out. I stared at it like it was a screen in a dream, clear but impossible. I told him there must be some kind of system error, a data corruption, a virus. He just blinked at me and said, "Are you okay? Should I call Rachel?" I left the office and never went back. Back at the house, I went to the crawl space again. The shoebox was gone. The photo with the cabin, replaced with a different one, this time of Rachel and me, or Wes, sitting on a bench in front of a lighthouse. Another trip I never took. Another memory I never made. I flipped the photo over. In Rachel's handwriting, Cape Mears, October 2015. "You asked me to marry you here." I asked her about it. She smiled. "That was one of your softer days," she said. "My what?" She folded laundry while she spoke, like this was a completely normal conversation to have with someone actively losing grip on his own identity. "Your softer days," she repeated, "before you got confused, before the echoes started." "What echoes?" Rachel looked at me with the kind of gentle pity reserved for the elderly or the terminally lost. "You don't know you're echoing until you start stuttering through time. And you're stuttering now, Wes. You've been stuttering for weeks." I stared at her in silence. My throat was dry, my hands were trembling, and for the first time in this whole descent into unreality, I believed her. Not because it made sense, but because it felt true in the worst way possible, like a bell ringing somewhere I couldn't see. That night, I found my reflection watching me again. It wasn't copying me anymore. That's the part that nearly broke me. I was brushing my teeth and it just paused, head tilted slightly, toothbrush still, staring at me like I was the ghost, like I was the thing in the mirror. I whispered, "Julian," just to hear the name out loud. The reflection mouthed back, "Wesley." I've stopped trusting the clocks. The calendar says it's August, but the leaves outside are changing like October. I can hear kids playing in the street, but there are no children on our block. The dog next door barks in perfect identical intervals, like a looped audio file. I left a recorder running in the living room while I slept. When I played it back, I heard footsteps at 3:12 a.m., my voice at 3:14, saying things I have no memory of saying. The mirror won't hold much longer. She has the original still. You'll need to choose a version soon. I don't know what that means. I don't know what version she's keeping. But tonight, I noticed something in the hallway. The closet door, the same one that started all this, was closed. I didn't close it, and from inside, I swear I heard someone whisper my name. Both of them. It's hard to explain what the closet sounds like when it breathes, because it does breathe now, I swear. You can feel the pull of air against your skin when you stand close to it, like a low, slow inhale that drags your body slightly forward, then exhales with a faint rustle that isn't from clothes or wood, but something deeper, heavier. The kind of sound you hear in the back of your throat more than with your ears. The kind that reminds you this isn't just a doorway anymore. It's a wound. For the first time since this nightmare began, I opened it. Not with hesitation, not with fear, with purpose. I wanted answers, and something inside me knew they were waiting there. If not for me, then for the version of me that had left pieces behind. The light in the hallway flickered as I reached for the handle, not a metaphorical flicker, a real stuttering buzz. And when I pulled the door open, what I saw wasn't clothes, wasn't hangers, wasn't the usual dull drywall. It was me, not a reflection, not a mirror. It was me standing inside the closet, eyes bloodshot, mouth twitching slightly like he'd been screaming for hours, but couldn't remember why. He was dressed differently. Older clothes, a hoodie I haven't worn in years, shoes I thought I'd thrown away. He looked frayed, like a photocopy of a photocopy, edges too soft, details not quite right. And when I stepped back, he stepped forward. But here's the thing. He didn't leave the closet. He stayed inside, like there was an invisible barrier between us. He lifted one hand, pressing it gently against something I couldn't see, and mouthed a word. Run. Just that. One word. Then his image began to glitch, first horizontally, like an old VHS tape warping under heat, then vertically. His body twitched. His hand split into a dozen fingers for a fraction of a second, then collapsed inward like a dying star. Then he was gone. And behind him, still within the closet, was another hallway. One that didn't belong to this house, or any house I've ever known. It was long, impossibly long, with doors that didn't match. Some were rusted, others carved in wood I couldn't identify. One was made of glass, one had no handle, and all of them hummed. I shut the closet, not out of fear, but because I could feel it watching me back, and I needed time. That night, Rachel cooked dinner. I didn't eat, not because I was suspicious, but because I was done pretending we were still playing house. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat across from me, and looked me dead in the eyes. You opened it. I didn't respond. She smiled, not cruelly, almost lovingly, like a nurse watching a patient finally come out of anesthesia. You don't have long, she said. Now that you've seen the hallway, they'll start testing your doors. What are they? They're you, or possibilities of you. Versions that got too loud. She took a sip of her wine, placed the glass down without making a sound. The closet doesn't create, it reveals. Reveals what? Rachel leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping. Whichever you become's real first. After she went to bed, I sat in the living room staring at the picture frames on the wall. There were at least 6 of them I didn't recognize. Photos of me with people I'd never met. An older man with a limp and a scar across his chin. A woman holding a cat I'm violently allergic to. But in each photo, I'm smiling. I look content. And worse, they look like they know me. I took one off the wall and flipped it over. There was writing on the back in my handwriting. Montreal, 2018, just before everything split. Split. That word again. I dropped the frame. The glass shattered across the hardwood in a pattern that looked too precise, almost symmetrical. As I leaned down to clean it, I noticed a bulge beneath the floorboards. I pried one up. Another envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper with just 3 words scrawled in black ink. Choose your ending. No explanation, no signature. But I swear I smelled the same aftershave from the barber shop that no longer exists. When I returned to the hallway, the closet door was open again. Only this time, there was a flickering light inside. Not warm like a bulb. Cold, electronic, like a failing screen. I stepped to the threshold. The hallway beyond was now shorter. More doors than before, one of them slightly ajar. I didn't go through, not yet. Instead, I turned and whispered, Rachel, which version are you? She appeared behind me so suddenly I almost collapsed. I'm the one who loved you enough to keep you intact, but you wanted to know, so now it's on you." She reached past me and gently began closing the closet door. But before it shut, I saw something move in the farthest door. Something tall, walking with a limp, dragging something behind it. A shape I recognized but didn't understand. As the door clicked shut, Rachel leaned close and whispered into my ear, "Don't take the door with the mirror. It lies." Then she went to bed like nothing happened. I stood in front of the closet all night. I didn't sleep, didn't sit, just stood there, watching the handle like it might twitch on its own. The hallway beyond it was still there, humming faintly, pulsing like a living artery, timeless, cold, and full of choices. The doors had changed again. There were now only two, one on the right, shimmering like glass covered in condensation, and one on the left, dull wood, blackened at the edges, but strangely familiar. The note in my pocket burned against my leg like a warning flare. "Choose your ending." I reached into the closet and stepped through. The temperature shifted instantly, like I'd walked from a summer day into a cellar. My breath clouded. The air smelled like wet stone and old paper. I walked slowly, each step echoing beneath me, even though I wasn't sure there was a floor at all. Just darkness stretching in every direction. The door on the right, the one that shimmered, it pulled at me, whispered in my own voice. It showed me flashes of a life with no pain, no Rachel, no memories. Just a version of me that started fresh, somewhere else, nowhere specific. I saw myself living alone in a city I didn't recognize, smiling at strangers, forgetting who I was. But that wasn't peace, that was erasure. Then I looked at the door on the left. It didn't shine, it didn't whisper, it didn't promise anything. It just waited, and I knew that door belonged to me, to the man who had stood silent while his world fractured, who had been rewritten and bent and hollowed out, and still chose to remember. So I walked to it, and opened it. I woke up in our bed. Not in a sweat, not in a panic, just awake. The light coming through the window was soft, real. I could hear birds, real ones, not looped. The neighbor's dog barked out of rhythm. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight of a body that was mine. Every bone and breath settled into place like they belonged again. Rachel was asleep next to me, curled toward the wall, peaceful. I got out of bed, half expecting the mirror to mock me, the floorboards to move, the closet to pulse. But nothing did. The closet was shut. Firmly. Finally. Over the next few days, the hallucinations, or whatever they were, stopped. My coworkers called me Julian again. My employee profile was back to normal. My brother texted me an old meme we used to laugh at. The photo of the cabin disappeared. The one of the lighthouse turned back into our engagement photo from the botanical garden. Even Rachel changed, slowly, subtly, like she'd dropped a heavy burden, like she knew I had chosen right and could finally stop guiding me through the dark. She asked me one night, casually, "Do you feel more like yourself?" And for the first time in I don't know how long, I said, "Yes." I still don't know exactly what that place was. A glitch in memory? A spiritual reckoning? A test from something outside time? I may never know, but I believe each door held a version of me waiting to be picked. One was oblivion, the other was truth. I chose the version where I remembered who I was, where I loved someone through the unraveling and came back stronger, not stranger, where I fought for the life that was mine. Sometimes I still catch the closet door cracked open just a sliver. I always close it gently, not in fear, but in respect, because it showed me everything I could have become and reminded me why I didn't. This is Julian Holloway, and I'm still here,